Karen Stewart spent 28 years working in the intelligence world as an analyst for the NSA. She's now retired, but she has quite the story to tell, and she's here for an exclusive whistleblowing event. For those of you who don't know, across America there's a network of almost 80 so-called fusion centers. Officially, these fusion centers exist to encourage information sharing between state and local law enforcement and federal agencies like the FBI and the CIA. They were created in the wake of 9/11, ostensibly to prevent agents from missing the warning signs of future attacks. Karen says that's not at all what the fusion centers were actually for. Instead, she says that they ended up being used as test sites, places to try out weapons or microchipping, or using microwaves even to beam sounds into people's heads like the voice of God. Karen says that during her time at the NSA, she was subjected to abusive polygraphs with psychologists telling her, "We're going to dig up records on you and find something to fire you for." She says that security officials poisoned her dog and tried to get her in car accidents. And when she complained about it, they gaslighted her. They said that she was crazy. They fired her. She says that this harassment ended in 2009, but then restarted when she moved to Florida in 2015. And she says that once again, that harassment emanated from a fusion center. Karen says both that she and her parents were harmed by radio wave weapons, and she believes that agents operating out of the fusion centers are knocking people out with gas or radio waves and then putting microchips on them to track them. Karen Stewart joins us now to talk about all of that and more. That's quite the amazing story.
Thank you. I mean, with the news now coming from the Canadian truckers and from protesters in Canberra that they're all getting burned with radio waves, there's no government in the world who doesn't know about these weapons, and they are ready to use them on any of their citizens that they find inconvenient. Now, I investigated what was going on in Florida. I traced it to the Fusion Center, and I even saw 2 Fusion Center employees going house to house, and those, not our house, but those houses turned out to be the ones they gave the weapons to, and my meters told me which houses that were emanating these horrifically dangerous and harmful emanations into our house. And even though the sheriff's department refused to help multiple times, I ended up going to the Fusion Center, and guess who I ended up talking to from the domestic terrorism unit? The 2 same people who had been in our neighborhood going house to house and enlisting people into the project to harm me and harm my parents if they needed to. So I absolutely totally prove that those people were involved, and things are going on from the Fusion Center.
So when these people were going door to door trying to enlist people, what was it that they were saying to them?
You know, I'm not really sure, but what they're, in speaking to other victims, it would seem that what they do is they go to the neighbor's door and say, you know, we are the Fusion Center, we're law enforcement, we have a problem with person X, and we don't quite, and we're trying to imagine what it is that they would say. We don't quite have enough evidence to actually go after them according to the law. So we want you to hold these devices on them, and we don't know if they're telling them that this will keep us quiet and docile, or whether they are indeed killing us. So, but they invoke some type of bizarre patriotism, and then they tell them, and if they're hesitant, they say, well, we will be giving you gift cards that are not reportable to taxes, and we'll give them to you on a regular basis. And we have seen, you know, the collective of us have compared notes, and what happens in neighborhoods that are co-opted is that all of a sudden these people start getting new roofs, new washer dryers, new riding lawnmowers, et cetera, et cetera. So they are paying them in one way or another to harm us. And we think, too, that the fusion centers have been criticized for not ever finding a terrorist activity that they ever stopped. And so they're expanding to like 80 fusion centers now across the country. What is it they're doing? They don't find terrorists, and they don't stop terrorists. Are we the terrorists? I believe so.
Well, according to the government, I'm a terrorist for sitting here talking about COVID-19, or for questioning the results of the 2020 fraudulent and stolen election, or for questioning a communist takeover that's happening in this country via Marxist coup d'etat. So I'm used to the whole domestic terrorist thing, and I don't doubt at all that our government is spying on us. I mean, obviously, that's been proven time and time again. Have you talked to any of your neighbors to confirm that these people from the Fusion Center are asking them specifically to spy on you or to keep tabs on your goings-on?
I've seen the Fusion Center personnel at their homes, at some of their homes. And then one gentleman I tried to talk to, and he became extraordinarily haughty and abusive. And so they were told basically to gaslight you or abuse you to keep you from asking questions. And I've heard just incredible things. One woman in Florida went to another's house, and I had helped a child find their dog, a lost dog. So I was leaving as the woman told this new woman who just moved into the neighborhood with several children that I was a pedophile according to the Fusion Center. So if they don't have anything on you, they viciously make up garbage to absolutely defame you and get the neighbors hostile. In fact, this neighbor actually had just bought a house, moved in, and then they resold the house and left because of the lie this woman told. So I've heard that before, and other people have said, you're called a traitor, you're called a terrorist sympathizer. If you're a man, a wife beater, or a rapist, it's just anything they can think of to make your neighbors mad at you and to ignore anything that they're doing to you and your home, because they do resort to vandalism, destruction of your car, all kinds of things. And like I said, we had one dog that was poisoned with a neurotoxin. Now, how does a dog get a neurotoxin? It doesn't. So these people are the only terrorists in the United States, as far as I can tell, and they're ruining hundreds of thousands of lives, if not 2 to 3 million people across the United States. And some people say, why don't you just move out of that town? You can't. You actually get followed by car to anywhere you go, and they set it up all over again. And if you are declared a domestic terrorist, remember, from the NDAA and the PAA, you can be killed without any type of legal action. Okay? So they say, well, if we can kill them, we can certainly experiment on them with poisons, gases, war-grade poisons and gases, or electromagnetic weapons. And if they die, they die. Too bad. We're covered by the NDAA.
So for the viewers here, what Karen is speaking of is if you are labeled as a potential domestic terrorist, this opens up a menu filled with a whole variety of different items that are now lawfully able to be used by the federal government in an effort to spy on you, continuous surveillance without warrants, warrantless wiretaps, and some of this other experimentation, even torture, waterboarding, advanced interrogation techniques, and so on and so forth. In your time as an intel analyst for the NSA, you state that the NSA would pull you aside and that agents would threaten to fire you. Why were you on their radar as somebody that they would want to get rid of?
Well, very quickly, I did a 6-month report, top secret report, that actually saved about 2,000 lives during Operation Iraqi Freedom. And my boss took my name off of the promotion write-up and put the name of a woman he and several other managers had been sleeping with inside the NSA. So when I was told, when it was leaked to me what had happened, why I didn't get the double promotion, I went to the Inspector General, and all hell broke loose. I mean, I was dragged in for one polygraph where the guy actually screamed at me. How do you pass a polygraph with somebody screaming at you? You don't. So that was the very first and only polygraph that I didn't pass. So a month later, they brought me in for a second one, and I felt I did fine. The guy didn't seem to be involved. And he said, oh, no, we're going to mark this indeterminate because we need a third one. Well, I took the third and passed it with flying colors. And the woman who gave it said, look, the second one you passed with flying colors too, but you had totally flunked the first one. Well, no doubt. And then the second one, you totally passed. So we needed a third to figure out what was going on, but this should be over. You should be good. And that was not true, because at that point in time, what I thought was indiscretion and immorality turned out to be what looks like to be a Mossad honeypot operation that they wanted me to shut up about, or else. And I was called into security, and a psychologist said, shut up about this, or I will go back through all of your psychological tests over the years, and I will find a problem to fire you for.
You bring up so many different things that are actually happening inside of our government that have been uncovered already. These Mossad candidates, for example, you have Israeli models that are now all of a sudden sitting U.S. congresspeople, allegedly, and the receipts line up. They show that, yeah, this person was that, and then they just appeared out of nowhere. I've got about a minute left here. Is there an entity that can investigate your claims or is willing to, or does anybody have the power to go after the CIA or the FBI or the NSA for that matter?
I have written more letters than I can count and gotten little to no response. Nobody wants to take this on. I even wrote to, I think it was the DHS, and they said, well, you weren't illegally targeted for being a woman or for being white or being a Christian. So it doesn't matter to us whether what you're accused of is correct or not. That's all we care about in the civil rights area of the DHS. So we're not going to investigate.
Well, as they're keeping a watchful eye on you, we need to keep a watchful eye on our federal government because we absolutely know that they're up to something. Karen Stewart, thank you so much for being here. If there's a fusion center in your neighborhood, keep them under wraps. Hold them to account and ask them, what are you doing in my neighborhood? As we continue to track governments using weapons against its people, obviously we can't forget shining a light on our hospitals and the self-appointed executioners that are killing people for cash. Murder for money, a story that's going to blow your mind, coming up next in about 60 seconds as the Stu Peters Show continues. Go nowhere.